everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today we're doing another TBR. In my last TBR, you all seemed to really enjoy that. I was asking if you minded if I, didn't actually read the books that I put on my TBR, and you all very graciously said that you didn't mind if I didn't read the book, and you also were very sweet about being like, only make TBRs if you want to. Which I appreciate. I do enjoy making TBRs. I just never did because I worried that people would be like annoyed if I didn't actually read the books that I put on my TBR. But as long as we're on the same page about this, then I'll just keep making TBRs and then not reading the books, but it'll be fun for everybody, and that's what matters. I didn't make a TBR for March, mostly just because, as I've said in a couple of videos, I started a new job in February and I was kind of overwhelmed with all of that, and so I just wasn't filming very much. But also because, so I made a February TBR, didn't read, I don't think, any of the books from that TBR in that month, but then by the time I got to March, I was in the mood for a lot of the books that I had put on my February TBR, so I just kind of rolled it over, and so I was like, I don't have anything new to say. But now we're on to April, so let's talk about the things that I want to read in April, and fingers crossed, I will actually read these books. We'll find out. It's always a fun, gamble. Okay, so as before, I'm gonna start with the books that are from specific TBRs. So I have my top 10 TBR for the year and my TBR shelf clear out project. So we'll start with the books from those. So let's start with top 10 books of the year. Which are the books from that list that I want to read in April. My top priority for April is to read Forestborn by Ellen Audrey Becker. This is a YA fantasy that I think takes place in a world where there is some kind of illness, and our main character has a particular set of magical skills that means that she is set on a quest to find a cure for this illness. I think she is sent into the forest in order to accomplish this, and that's what I know about it, but it promises forest vibes, and that's what I'm here for. So I really want to get to this one. I feel like I've been in the mood for this recently, so I'm hoping to get to this in April. This is also the first book in a duology, so if I like this, then I'll probably also try to read the second book in April. I'm not officially putting that one on my TBR because it really is dependent on if I like this first book, but if I do like this, then I will probably buy and read the second book as well, because this year I'm really trying to binge through series, especially if they're short, if it's a duology or a trilogy, if it's something that's easy to just like zip through the series and read it all at once. I'm really trying to do that. The other book from my top 10 TBR for the year that I would love to get to this month is The Genesis of Misery by Neon Yang. This is their most recent release that came out last year, which is sci-fi retelling of Joan of Arc in space with giant robots. That's most of what I know about it. I have heard some pretty mixed things about this. Mostly, I guess they've mostly like leaned kind of negative, but I've heard a couple of people who really liked it. A friend of mine read this and told me that the book is split into sections, and each of those sections kind of feels like a novella, and so you might enjoy it more if you go into it thinking of this as like a bind up of novellas instead of as one single novel. So I guess I think I'm gonna try that mindset going into this, because I did read Neon Yang's Tenceret series, was that 2 years ago now, which are novellas, and I really loved the Tenceret series. I really liked the way that they write novellas, and so I was kind of curious to see how they would approach writing a full-length novel, but it seems like maybe novella style is just sort of their style. So we'll see. I'm really hoping to enjoy this, but I also am maybe not going into it with like super high expectations, even though I loved the Tenceret series. Just from hearing people's reviews, I'm like, okay, I'm not going in with overly high expectations for it. Anyway, I really want to get to this in April as well. Okay, then As for books from my TBR Clear Out project, so this is a project that I'm doing this year, which is about clearing out the oldest books on my shelves, the things that I have had the longest, which at this point are books that I bought in 2020. And so I started the year with 12 books that were on my TBR shelf that I bought in 2020, and I am trying to at least get through one of them a month. If I can get through more than one, that's amazing. But you know, my goal is to clear out that shelf by the end of the year. And it doesn't matter to me how they come off the shelf. You know, I can read it, I can DNF it, I can just unhaul it if I decide I'm not interested anymore, but things gotta get off the shelf. So far, it's been pretty much all DNFs, which I guess is not maybe the most surprising, but I was kind of hoping to not DNF so much. But I have two options from my TBR show, or from that TBR, that I'm considering reading in April. I don't know if I would get to both of them in 1 month, but I'm choosing between these. So the first one is Freshwater by Aakash Emezi. This book, I remember when it was released and a lot of people were talking about it, and then I feel like recently more people have been reading it and talking about it again. And you know, I think I've been putting off reading it just because of like the way that people talk about it, you know, because people say like it's very strange in the storytelling and subject matter, and like just it's a very unusual book. And the people who love it, like love it. People love this book. But even the people who love it acknowledge that they're like, this book is not going to be for everyone. It is very unusual. It's not going to work for people. And so, you know, they're very like, go into it knowing that. And I want to love it too. And so I'm like, I think I've been putting it off because I'm like, I don't know. Like sometimes I like things that are kind of weird, but then sometimes things can definitely be too weird for me. I have no idea. I don't know what I'm gonna think of this. So this is one of my options. I need to get to it at some point this year, and I was thinking maybe April would be a good time. The other one that I'm considering is Greenwood by Michael Christie. This one I actually already started, but it was like 2 years ago, so it's been a while, and I got this far into it, so not super far. So I got about 70 or 80 pages into this, and I put it down because I think that I just like the characters in the story were not really gripping me. I think that this book is thematically very interesting, but the characters and story just like were not really engaging me. And so that's why like I didn't totally DNF it, because I was interested in like the themes or thematic work that it was doing, but I also just like was having a hard time motivating myself to read it because I just was not you know, vibing with the characters and everything. So I do want to give it another shot. If I give it another try and it still isn't working for me, it's gonna have to be a DNF, but I'm hoping that I will like it better this time. Oh yeah, this is about essentially generations of a family that have a special relationship or like significant relationship to this specific grove of trees. I'm gonna give this another try, and so I'm not sure if I would get to both of these. I'll probably pick one. I think for both of these, I would probably try to get an audiobook for them, because I feel like they might just, both of these I feel like they would work better for me in audiobook format. And we'll see. We'll see which one I get to. But I would love to, you know, get another book off of my shelf, and hopefully not DNF something, you know? That so far this project has been a lot of DNFs. Okay. Then we're on to just other books that I'm interested in, because those were all of my books that are from specific TBRs. Also, I'll link the original TBR videos in the description if you want to look at if you want to see any of those. But getting into other books on my TBR. First up, I have Dagger Spell by Katherine Kerr. This is one of those fantasy books that I often see recommended with like a certain cluster of books and authors, which are very often like women who are writing fantasy in the 90s and early 2000s, which a lot of times I really enjoy. Some of my favorite authors are from that sort of like group of authors that are often recommended together. So I'm always interested to try more who are kind of in that group, and Catherine Kerr is one of them. So this is, I think that there is a sorcerer who has been cursed, and he is like trapped. He might be like trapped in a magical sleep or some kind of prison. And then we are following a girl who is the daughter of a man who's like a sword for hire. And so she's had a very unusual life, but she also has a very unusual special ability because she is able to speak to what is called the wild folk, which are essentially like the fae. So gnomes, sylphs, sprites. I am assuming that her storyline is at some point going to involve releasing this sorcerer from his prison or from his curse, whatever it is. But from there, I don't really know what's going to go on in this. This series is pretty long though. It has like 14 books in it, I think. So if I do like it, I will have quite a few books to read, which is great. I had kind of been putting off starting the series though until after I finished The Realm of the Elderlings, because I was kind of like, there are only so many like really long series that I feel like I can mentally commit myself to. So now that that is over, I feel more like mentally prepared to start a new long series. Granted, I don't think that these will be as I have not read this yet, but my impression is that these will not be as intense as The Realm of the Elderlings, and they also are shorter than the books in The Realm of the Elderlings. So maybe a little bit less of a intense commitment, but it's still quite a few books. Anyway, so I would really love to kick off this series. The other book that I really want to get to is The Beast Warrior by Naoko Uhashi. This is the second book to The Beast Player, which I reread last year because my plan was that I was going to reread The Beast Player and then read The Beast Warrior. I reread the first book and then did not read the second book, so I need to read this before I forget what happened in the first one, so then I don't have to reread it a third time. But the first one was following this girl named Ellen, who has a special like bond to animals, mostly because she like observes them so closely and understands them so well, and that leads her to being a caretaker for the royal beasts. And then as she gets involved with that, it involves her in some of the politics of the world. So I enjoyed the first one and I really want to get to the second one, and also this series just has beautiful covers. I love the covers of these. Those are the ones that I have physically. I have one other book that I would really love to get to in April, but I don't own it physically, so I'd get the audiobook for this probably, which is Small Favors by Erin A. Craig. I read, what is the book called? I think it's House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. Maybe was it 2 or 3 years ago, something like that, and it was fine. I don't remember having like really strong feelings about it. It's not one that like sticks in my mind really clearly, so I wasn't necessarily planning to read more from the author, but I've been kind of intrigued by Small Favors, and it, like, the cover gives me a spring vibe. I don't know if the book actually has spring vibes, because my impression is that it is actually quite creepy, because I think that it is about this town that is plagued by something in the woods or something. It's something like that. I forget what the description actually was, but it doesn't, I'm pretty sure it does involve bees and beekeeping in some way, and bees always give me a spring, like it feels very springish to me, and the cover of this feels very spring, and so I just kind of have been wanting to read it. So I'm hoping to get to that one in April as well. And we'll see if it has spring vibes at all, or maybe it won't. I have no idea. Anyway, those are the books that are on my mind and on my TBR for April. I'd love to know if you have read any of these, what you think of them, or what are you planning to read in April? I'd love to know. Talk to me about it in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye!